Hi folks, welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. Well, through all this food crisis talk that we've been having for a few months now, of talking about getting ourselves ready because food prices are going to skyrocket. I mean, they're already really high. And if any of you have gone grocery shopping lately, which if you all are eating, you most likely are, you've noticed food prices have already skyrocketed. Well, they're just going to keep getting worse, okay? And the very real possibility of more food shortages, because we're already having food shortages. You're all aware of the baby formula shortage. There are certain restaurants that are complaining that they're having shortages of food to put into their menu on the items that they make. So Subway, they can't get enough meat to put on their sandwiches. Other places are cutting back on certain items because they can't get it. So we're already seeing food shortages, okay? But could it get worse? Absolutely. And all that we've talked about for the last few months, when I talk about how bad it could get, I always let you know when I say that at that moment, it's based on what we currently know that's going on. And that if things continue to get worse, if there are more events later on down the road, well, it's just going to exacerbate the whole situation, right? Well, that's exactly what just keeps happening. It seems like every week something new happens, something new, tragic thing that happens. Another plant burns to the ground mysteriously. Another nation declares drought problems. There's always something. Or, as we've seen happen quite a bit here lately, is nations ban exports of certain food items because they see the handwriting on the wall. They see that things are getting bad. I mean, countries don't do this. If a country is making money off of exporting a particular food item, they're not going to lose that money, cut off the exports, and lose that money for no reason. They're doing it because they see what's happening and they see how dangerous it is. And this is happening once again. Over the weekend, we learned that India is banning the export of wheat. And that's actually a pretty big deal. While certainly we don't get really any wheat from India, wheat is a major producer of wheat. In fact, it's the second largest largest producer of wheat on the planet. They produce a lot of wheat. And one of the reasons why this is a big deal that they're now banning the export is just a few weeks ago, when there was all this talk started about the problem with wheat and other grains and commodities because of the Russian and Ukrainian war, there were three countries that popped up as the three countries that were going to save the day. These were the three countries that were also big producers of wheat, and that they were going to step up their game and they were going to fill in the gap that was left from Ukraine and Russia not producing or not selling their wheat. And India was one of those. Just a few weeks ago, they were talking about how maybe India can be one of those that can kind of push themselves. Well, guess what? They're not doing it. They've had a horrible year already because record excessive heat. And now they're saying, listen, we don't know how bad this is going to get. We know it's going to get bad, but we don't really know how bad. And we're just going to hold on to what we have because we'd rather feed ourselves. And I think they're also going to do some trade around their neighbors. And the rest of you, we're not selling to you. This is going to impact global markets, maybe not necessarily us here in America on the amount of food that we get, but it will impact global markets. And there's that trickle-down effect. As America has to step up, or Canada has to step up, because now India is out of the game, that means less overall wheat for us, because as you spread a certain amount out to more people, the individuals are all left with less in the hand. And this problem has just continued to exacerbate. We've already seen, obviously, food shortages in with the baby food. We're seeing food shortages in restaurants and in grocery stores. These are regional times, and it's not so much there's food shortages. It seems like with a lot of these, it's just unable to get enough food produced, okay? Which is, in a sense, a food shortage. They're not able to produce enough food in time, and then grocery stores and restaurants start running out. And as things worsen, because there's not really any sign things are going to get better, with diesel shortages and high fuel prices and other supply chain problems. So there's no real sign in anywhere in the near future that things are going to get better. the shortages are going to become more real. They're not going to be able to get the foods in place in time, and you're going to see more empty shelves for longer periods of time. But let's get back to the fact that India was going to be the one, one of the three that was going to help produce food for the rest of the world. So now India's out of the game. So now it appears that it's up to the United States and it's up to Canada to fill in the gap for Russia and Ukraine and now India. Three major wheat producers on the global market: India, Russia, and Ukraine. So a lot of people say, well, Canada and the United States, we produce just a ridiculous amount of wheat. I mean, we have big farms and we produce a lot of wheat. Well, maybe not so much. If you remember last year, Canada dealt with one of the worst droughts that they ever have. And it looks that this year's going to be the same, because the outlook on wheat for 2022 does not look very good in Canada. And they're already reducing their expected numbers in Canada. And you know what? They're doing the same here in the United States. We're lowering the numbers of what we think we're going to produce because the wheat is looking really bad. Normally, I believe it was last year, about 56% of the wheat crop was rated at good to better rating, and this year only about 27 to 30% of it is rating that. So our wheat crop here in the United States isn't looking too good either. Well, what about the other foods that we produce? Oh, corn. Well, corn isn't doing very good either. They're still not able to put out, even with the recent drying out and warm weather that a lot of places in the Midwest has had, we're still way behind the curve on getting corn planted, and they've already, the agriculture department has already lowered their expectations of the corn harvest this year. So we've lowered the expectations 4.5%. And then there's another factor that a lot of people have forgotten about is ethanol. So ethanol, not only 10% of gasoline is ethanol most places. President Biden has upped it to 15% now. So they're going to be taking even more ethanol. From the numbers that I've been looking at, they estimate just a little over a third of the corn harvest this year will be used in ethanol. So things aren't looking so good, folks. We've got a major wheat producer, another one that is off the market. We've got the other two standing major wheat producers that are declaring that, hey, our wheat harvest doesn't look good. Between the droughts last year, the droughts this year, wheat doesn't look very good. And then we've got this year now with planting of crops in the this year with corn and stuff that doesn't look good. We've also got shortages of diesel, especially on the East Coast. We've got extremely high fuel prices all over. And we've got just general supply chain problems. And all of this is happening at the same time. A big perfect storm's happening, folks, and it doesn't look very good. So when we talk about the possibility or the very likelihood of really high prices this fall and this winter, I think it's a real deal, and especially next year. I mean, we're not even talking what it's going to be like next year once things really start to catch up. It's really going to start getting bad next year. The solutions that I'm seeing out there, just to me, aren't the best solutions. For one thing, with the baby formula, one of the solutions that the government is doing is they're going to start importing baby formula from China. I mean, call me crazy, but if China can't even make dog food that doesn't kill our dogs, then why would parents want to give their babies formula coming from China? Just doesn't seem like a good idea. Some of their other solutions are just about as ridiculous when it comes to other things of increasing production when there really isn't the ability to increase production. We talked about that last week, how they've talked about, well, they'll just, increase production of refineries. And a lot of these refineries are already running at over 90% capacity. And so they can't increase their production. And then, of course, one of their other solutions for the lack of fertilizer and the poor wheat crop and the inability to get corn out and not enough fertilizer for corn or water for corn is to grow more soybeans. And so they're saying that farmers are being encouraged this year to grow more soybeans instead of other crops because they use less water and they use less fertilizer. Well, that all sounds good and well, except soybean isn't used as much in food as corn and wheat is. In fact, most of the food products that soybean is used in, a lot of us know we probably shouldn't be eating it because soybean, especially processed soybean, isn't a real good food. In fact, it's not really good for you to eat too much of it. In fact, one of the big side effects from eating too much processed soy is the increased production of estrogen. And there's been lots and lots of links over the years to men being a little bit more feminized, or at least producing things on their bodies that a man normally wouldn't because they've eaten too much soy, which seems to be a little strange that that's all coming out now at the same time that they're pushing this, men can have babies kind of stuff that they're pushing. It's interesting, but hey, I know I get a little off the crazy train every once in a while. While I'm at it, I'll mention this that I heard someone point out. It's interesting that there's this big baby formula shortage, and the left is surprisingly starting to encourage people to breastfeed, or they're calling it chest feeding. So I guess I should be politically correct, even though I care nothing about that. But anyways, the theory is, and I'm not saying this is legit, but something to think about, isn't it interesting that there's now mothers that have had the you-know-what that are now being forced to breastfeed their children, and there's a belief that it's transferred through breast milk into these babies. So is this another way to spread it around to the babies that normally wouldn't be getting it because they're getting formula? I don't know. I mean, weirder things have happened in the last couple of years. So at this point, I don't know that anything's off the table when it comes to strange and, unbelievable conspiracy theories. The point is that there isn't really any good solution for this problem. This is a problem that's been building for decades in the poor management of the farming industry from the federal government, and just the whole system as a whole of putting all of our eggs basically in one basket between monoculture, farming, and how the whole system works, where it only works well if it's very fine-tuned, and if it's not fine-tuned, it completely collapses. And that's pretty much what we're seeing with shutdowns here, shutdowns in China, wars, droughts, ridiculous increase in prices for things that are needed to either produce the food or transport the food, and here we are left with a collapsing food supply system. I don't know how to tell you any more than I already do. Get your houses in order, folks. Get out there and grow food. Stock up. That's important because it is still available. And while the prices have gone up, for most of us, we can still afford to be buying a little bit extra. But also be growing your own food, producing your own food. Learn how to do it, and do as much as you can, because by this fall, you're going to really be happy that you did. But I'm going to guess that by next year, you're almost going to get to the point that you really need it, or you're going to start losing more weight than probably you want to. Welcome to the new Venezuelan Diet 2.0. The point is, though, folks, is seriously, get ready for this. There's no reason not to. There's not really any negative side effects to becoming more prepared when it comes to your food and your food independence. There's just, to me, everything's a benefit with it. So certainly get out there and produce your own food this year. And continue stocking up, because I believe with all my heart we are watching the collapse of our civilization, and very likely the end times happen right before our eyes. All right, folks, thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.